An airline is a company that provides air transport services for traveling passengers and freight. Airlines utilize aircraft to supply these services and may form partnerships or alliances with other airlines for code-share agreements, in which they both offer and operate the same flight. Airline industry: the business of transporting paying passengers and freight by air along regularly scheduled routes, typically by airplanes but also by helicopter. Airline industry is a system of transportation part of aviation industry moving people and goods utilizing the airways, one of the only true global businesses. Airlines are often referred to as major or network, regional, or low-cost carriers. Descriptions of these classifications follow. Major, network carriers, major name-brand domestic airlines, such as American, Delta, Northwest, United, and US Airways. These airlines typically fly large jet aircraft between hubs and other high-demand destinations. An airline hub is an airport that an airline uses as a transfer point to get passengers to their intended destination. It is part of the hub-and-spoke model, where travelers moving between airports not served by direct flights change planes en route to their destination. Regional carriers: smaller airlines that typically partner with major, network carriers to fly between hubs and smaller, lower-demand cities. Examples include American Eagle, Delta Connection, Atlantic Southeast, Comair, and Northwest Airlink, Musaba. Low-cost carriers, LCCs, independent carriers with a low-cost, low-fare business model. These carriers typically forego hub-and-spoke route systems for point-to-point routes, and normally fly only one or two types of larger aircraft. Examples include AirTran, JetBlue, and Southwest. The provision of air transportation service is driven primarily by the demand for air travel, as well as the demand for the shipment of goods by air. Virtually all of the interrelated decisions of the many stakeholders in the airline industry stem from the need to accommodate the historically growing demand for air transportation. And many of the activities of governments, airlines, airports, and aircraft manufacturers. Airline terminology and definitions. In the airline industry, there exist standard measures of passenger traffic and airline output, which are also combined to generate several common measures of airline performance. Airline traffic and revenue measures of airline traffic quantify the amount of airline output that is actually consumed or sold. Traffic carried by airlines consists of both passengers and cargo, which can include air freight, mail, and passenger baggage. All cargo airlines transport primarily air freight, whereas passenger or combination airlines transport a mix of traffic that can include all four types of traffic mentioned. Combination carriers can operate a mix of all cargo. The global airline industry, edited by Peter Bilababa, Omdeo Odney and Cynthia Barnhart. Copyright 2009 John Wiley & Sons, Limited. ISBN 978-0470 4077 448. Overview of airline economics, markets and demand, freighter and passenger aircraft. But even the passenger aircraft can carry one or more types of cargo in the belly compartments. For passenger airlines, traffic refers to inflowing passengers, as opposed to demand, which includes both those consumers that boarded the flights and those who had a desire to travel on the flight but could not be accommodated due to insufficient capacity. Thus, at a given price level, or set of prices, there exists a total potential demand for air transport XOOO2_SHN between cities. Given the limited total capacity, available seats, offered by airlines, this potential total demand includes both passengers carried, traffic, and passengers unable to find seats, also known as rejected demand or spill. Passenger airline traffic can be measured in terms of the number of passengers trans_X000_2_ported, but the most common measure of airline traffic is a revenue passenger kilometer (RPK), or, alternatively, a revenue passenger mile (RPM). In the following examples, we use kilometers. Thus, 1 RPK is defined as one paying passenger transported 1 kilometer. For example, a flight carrying 140 passengers over a distance of 1,000 kilometers generates 140,000 RPK of airline traffic. The fare paid by passengers to travel by air varies by distance, by season, and according to the conditions and characteristics of the fare product purchased. For example, business class or advance purchase excursion fares. Yield is a measure of the average fare paid by all passengers per kilometer or mile flown in a market, on a set of routes, or a region of operation for an airline. Yield is calculated by dividing the total passenger revenues collected by the number of RPK carried. In our example, if the flight that carried 140,000 RPK generates $16,000 of total passenger revenue, its yield would be $0.114 per RPK, that is, $16,140,000. Airline output and operating expense. The output of a passenger airline can be represented in a variety of ways, including the number of flight departures operated and number of seats flown. Similar to RPK, the most common measure of airline output is an available seat kilometer (ASK) or available seat mile (ASM). Thus, one ASK is defined as one available seat flown 1 kilometer. If our example flight operates over a distance of 1,000 kilometers with a 200-seat aircraft, it generates 200,000 ASK of airline output. Load factor refers to the ratio of traffic to airline output, representing the proportion of airline output that is sold or consumed. For a single flight leg, that is, a non-stop operation, its load factor can simply be defined as the number of passengers divided by the number of airline terminology and definitions 49 seats on the flight. For our example flight, the load factor can be calculated as passengers carried divided by available seats, or 70%, 140 to 100. Because most airlines operate many flights, each with different distances flown, the proportion of output consumed is better represented by an average load factor, defined as the ratio of RPK to ASK, or RPM/ASM. Our example flight's load factor can thus also be calculated as 140,000 RPK divided by 200,000 ASK, or 70%. Now, assume that the same airline operates another flight leg using the same 200-seat aircraft over a distance of 2,000 kilometers, and this second flight carries 170 passengers. The load factor of this second flight leg is LF equals passengers, capacity equals 170 to 100 equals 85%. What is the total average load factor of this small network of two flights? There are two different and correct answers. The average leg load factor is the simple mean of the load factors of the two flight legs. Alpha equals 70% plus 85%/2 equals 77.5%. The average network or system load factor is the ratio of total RPK to ASK, as defined earlier. ALF equals 140,000 plus 340,000, 200,000 plus 400,000 equals 80.0%. Basic airline profit equation. As for any industry, operating profit for an airline is defined as total revenue minus total operating expense. For passenger airlines, the revenue and expense terms can be broken down into the measures of output and sales defined above, as follows. Operating profit equals RPK times yield minus ASK times unit cost. Based on 1,252-mile average stage length and 11.3 block hours daily utilization, average for U.S. major, different stage lengths and utilization by different airlines result in substantial variations in block_XO00 _ costs for same aircraft type. Also, differences in crew costs, union contracts, seniority, maintenance costs, wage rates, and ownership costs, age of A, C. Introduction to Airline Agency Role and its Functions. IATA, its Objectives, Functions and Role. ICAO, its Function and Role. Airport Authority of India. Open Sky Policy. International Conventions. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, is an international industry trade group of airlines headquartered in Montreal, Canada, where the International Civil Aviation Organization is also headquartered. IATA was formed on 19 April 1945, in Havana, Cuba. It is the successor to the International Air Traffic Association, founded in The Hague in 1919. The year of the world's first international scheduled services. At its founding, IATA had 57 members from 31 nations, mostly in Europe and North America. Today it has about 230 members from more than 140 nations in every part of the world. Objectives of IATA. Its stated aims and objectives are as follows: to promote safe, regular and economical air transport for the benefit of the people of the world, to foster air commerce and study the problems connected therewith, to promote means for collaboration among air transport enterprises engaged directly or indirectly in international air transport service, to cooperate with ICAO and other international organizations. There is always close association and dialogue between ICAO and IATA. In order to fulfill its aims and objectives, IATA is divided into various departments, each with a specific role to fulfill. Traffic Department provides a forum for traffic coordination discussions, services as a central source of traffic information for publishers and members lists, and verifies services of cargo and travel agents worldwide on behalf of the member airlines, coordinates training programs for cargo and travel agents, arranges centralized billing and reporting of agents, sales, provides a forum for airlines to resolve scheduling problems, helps represent the industry on air mail issues, promotes awareness programs to combat fraud. Legal Department provides professional legal advice and interpretations to individual members as required from an airline perspective, distributes and publishes information on legal or regulatory issues of industry-wide interest and importance, formulates industry positions vis-à-vis bodies like ICAO, the European Community and individual governments. Functions of IATA. IATA was involved in establishing a sound technical and legal framework for the operation of the world's airlines. It organized the first worldwide traffic conference in 1947, which worked out agreements related to fare construction rules for multi-sector trips, revenue allocation, prorating rules, baggage allowance, ticket and airway bill design, and agency appointment procedures. IATA is also the coordinator of multilateral interline traffic agreements that allow nearly 300 airlines around the world to accept each other's ticket and airway bills and thus their passenger and cargo traffic on a reciprocal basis. ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, is the specialized agency of the United Nations (UN) for civil aviation. Was created by the Convention on International Civil Aviation signed in Chicago on 7 December 1944. It codifies the principles and techniques of international air navigation and fosters the planning and development of international air transport to ensure safe and orderly growth. Its headquarters are located in the Quartier International of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Airports Authority of India, AAI, was constituted by an Act of Parliament and came into being on 1 April, 1995 by merging erstwhile National Airports Authority and International Airports Authority of India. The merger brought into existence a single organization entrusted with the responsibility of creating, upgrading, maintaining and managing civil aviation infrastructure both on the ground and airspace in the country. Functions of AAI. The main functions of AAI inter alia include construction, modification and management of passenger terminals, development and management of cargo terminals, development and maintenance of apron infrastructure including runways, parallel taxiways, apron etc., provision of communication, navigation and surveillance which includes 1213 provision of DVO, DME, ILS, ATC radars, visual aids etc., provision of air traffic services, provision of passenger facilities and related amenities at its terminals, thereby ensuring safe and secure operations of aircraft, passenger and cargo in the country. Some other functions of AAI includes design, development, operation and maintenance of international and domestic airports and civil enclaves, control and management of the Indian airspace extending beyond the territorial limits of the country, as accepted by ICAO. Construction, modification and management of passenger terminals. Development and management of cargo terminals at international and domestic airports. Provision of passenger facilities and information system at the passenger terminals at airports. Expansion and strengthening of operation area, viz. runways, aprons, taxiway etc. Provision of visual aids. Provision of communication and navigation aids, viz. ILS, DVOR, DME, radar etc. The top players in the commercial aircraft industry are Airbus, Boeing, and McDonnell Douglas. In addition to the major airline fleets, there are also two smaller players, Embraer and Bombardier. The Boeing Company, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics Corporation, Northrop Grumman, Safran Group. The role of the airport and each of its components in the global aviation business, how different airports meet different market needs and have different requirements, aircraft operations from start-up to shutdown, operating aircraft and aerodromes, ADRs, in all weather conditions, including low visibility, safety management principles and how to protect the ADR and operations from threats, including obstacles and wildlife, and the impact airport operations can have on the environment. Shell and BP are leading companies in the aviation fuel industry supplying across the globe. Apart from these, Total, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Gazprom, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, and Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited are leading the global market. Aircraft maintenance is the performance of tasks required to ensure the continuing airworthiness of an aircraft or aircraft part, including overhaul, inspection, replacement, defect rectification, and the embodiment of modifications, compliance with airworthiness directives and repair. The introduction of